tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City, brought to you by the City Tutors. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and please join me in welcoming my guest for this episode, Miss Jackie Bellando. Hey, Jackie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining me. I appreciate that so much. So, Jackie, who are you?
So I currently direct the program CUNY Tech Prep for University of New York, CUNY students. For those of you who might not know the public school system in New York, CUNY, we help computer science students land oftentimes their first internship or job in the tech field. I am not a computer scientist myself. I've learned a lot about tech, as you can imagine, being part of CTP over the years, but it's really been an amazing journey getting here and being able to help CUNY students, which is a real privilege.
Absolutely. Yes. So CUNY, City University of New York. I'm a product of City University of New York.
Love it.
City Tutors is a product of City University of New York.
I figured. Yeah, I thought so when I heard from you.
Yes. All of us, all of the head guys, almost all, 3 out of 4 are graduates of City College.
Amazing.
The executive director is not only a graduate, he's a professor at City College. I'm a graduate. I got my bachelor's there. I'm also going for my master's. I'm a master's candidate at City College.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. But CUNY is the City University of New York, and that is our biggest clientele. So for City Tutors, we basically provide free tutoring and mentorship to the CUNY system. There are programs for tutoring and mentorship in the CUNY system, but CUNY serves anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 students per year. Yeah. So it's impossible to provide resources at the demand that's needed. And that's how City Tutors, the not-for-profit startup, was conceptualized and created and all that kind of stuff. But our goal, our mission is to provide access to tutoring, self-paced tutoring and self-paced mentorship. So very familiar with the CUNY system, but I'm not familiar with the CUNY Tech Prep. So I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
So the students, how did the students find you? They're in CUNY already.
Yeah.
They're in that major.
Yeah.
Do they find you or do you find them?
Yeah. It's a fantastic question. We're actually just wrapping up our recruitment season for our incoming 9th cohort. And we have year-long cohorts since 2015 when we got started. And yeah, I'd say, over the years, it's become a little bit of both, which is, a blessing. When we first started, we were more of a pilot program funded by the Tech Talent Pipeline, a government initiative originally by the de Blasio administration to support New Yorkers who want to pursue these jobs in tech, but could use resources in order to do so. Trying to get those high kind of in-demand tech jobs filled by New Yorkers themselves who are already here. So we were the first CUNY program under that umbrella. Served around 30 students, and we had to go find the students. Our lead professor, Dr. Edgardo Molina, he is a proud CUNY graduate himself, also from City College, taught at CCNY for a while. And I think, his leadership paired with our executive director, Dr. Ted Brown, longtime professor of computer science at Queens College. He conceptualized the idea for CTP, really helping students oftentimes getting their first kind of main technical project on their resume that, I'm not sure, Kevin, what you majored in college, but I know I did not major in computer science. I was not, required to have projects on my resume. I just needed, my babysitting job, my soccer, career, and then I could go apply. But these computer science students, they really need something tangible to talk about. And some of our CUNY students weren't leaving with that all the time. So CTP was helping to fill that gap. And at first, we were obviously small and not known. So we went out to schools across the 11 senior colleges to help find them within CS departments. Now that we've grown to serving, I think we're up to over 800 alumni. Every year we've served more like 150 up to 200 students, and students have kind of spread the word about CTP through word of mouth. We still do a number of info sessions every year. We also try to link up the best we can with the community colleges at CUNY, because we know there's a lot of transfer that happens between the community colleges going into the senior colleges for their junior and senior years. Most of our students are in their junior and senior years, computer science or related majors. Every school is a little bit different, which has been an interesting kind of caveat to me thinking of the answer to your question. It's like, how do you reach out to the CUNY when there's this entire CUNY universe to be reached out to, like every year, even though we, have grown, and you think maybe you're going to hit a point that closer to everything. You're never going to know everything in CUNY. Even learning about the city tutors, like, I didn't know about y'all. You didn't know about us, but we're clearly making our ways to grow and reach out to each other through, these online platforms and even just in person. I think a lot of our students really get to know CTP now through a friend or even a family member who did it in the years before.
Yes. So I'm gonna work backwards.
Yeah, please.
I'm gonna stay where you're at right now in the conversation. So you said you're the program manager.
I'm now program director.
Program.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I know this had to be controversial when you were even considered for the position and not having the technical background.
That's an interesting point. I was, what is the right term here? Predecessors, the people who came before me in the role, they were not explicitly technical either. One person was the manager before me, but then the kind of original program manager, she wasn't technical herself, but had a great amount of kind of experience creating mentorship type programs, to my knowledge. One thing that I've learned, honestly, in learning more about tech is that there are a great number of non-technical people in the tech field. Most roles, maybe. I've never said that with confidence, but I if not the majority, 51%, I'd bet that I'm very close to that percentage of jobs in tech. Are you also not technical yourself? You don't speak Python or C++? No, okay. Same.
But I'm from the perspective of the skill set. Like if the pieces you have to move around, pieces you're moving on the chess doesn't require a technical background. It requires organizational, it requires other mechanisms.
It does. It does require many hats. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people can't think that way. A lot of people may not recognize the value that you can bring to the table. That might be a new thing. That might be a new thing in academia, that the critical thinking, allows you the ability, or those skills are so transferable that you can transfer it to tech in the 100%. Transfer it in the internship placement arena.
Yeah. There's roles in tech that I think are becoming a little bit more widely known now, like project managers, product managers. These are people that don't inherently have to have technical backgrounds, that have to have those, kind of organizational skills that you're naming, to think holistically about a product or a problem, an idea, and kind of be a connector, keep people on track towards a vision. Ask, especially in the world of creating a product, go out and find out what your users need and then go meet that need. And, I think for me, having thought I was going to be a guidance counselor, I worked at a high school to help kids get into CUNY, get into school. it felt like kind of a natural next step now to be a people manager. It's kind of like, instead of having a student caseload directly, I have my staff. And, having been a career coach, in part of the career coach kind of the process of learning how to be a technical career coach is learning, a good amount about the technical pieces. Even though I don't code, I do know, what these languages are and kind of a high level understanding of what they do. So, you make a good point. It's not like I point blank know nothing about tech. I've had to do a lot of that self-learning to be able to connect the right people to the right ideas. But I also, my team heavily relies on the technical experts in our program, like Edgardo and our data science instructor, Zach Desario, along with a whole host of mentors, TAs who are sometimes alumni of the program, who come back and teach.
Yes, absolutely. So somebody introduced me to a term recently called weaponized bureaucracy.
Ooh.
Where they were talking about like the students who are immigrants, students who are immigrating from other countries. There might be a war-torn country. They're escaping that country.
Yeah.
Like America, try to go to school, and the school is asking them for documents that it was impossible for them to get.
Yeah.
While escaping this war-torn country, right?
Yeah.
And some of the documents that are being requested are so unnecessary, right? Your elementary school records, your high school diploma. If you're already in college, why you need a high school diploma if I'm already in college? If I can already prove I'm in college, why are you being redundant? So, and they were making a point of the fact that the challenges that are placed on people. So that's what fascinated me about the fact that you're in IT and someone had to be forward thinking enough, right, to say, yes, she's placing IT students, placing IT candidates, but she's not programming computers, guys. Come on, right?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yes, that kind of forward thinking, I respect that. I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're just making me think about, like, I think the fact that I had been a career coach first and they saw my work and, I had the kind of baseline knowledge of our students and our mission definitely helped me. I think if I had applied, blank, no CTP experience to this role, maybe they would have seen it a bit different. But I think, like, knowing a person and, like, outside of just a box of an application helps you maybe be a little bit more forward thinking too.
That being said, that forward thinking is what makes the journey so exciting, the academic journey or the career journey, right? And that's focus on. That's what our mentors focus on when they speaking to young people, as far as there's somebody out there. There's a young little girl, Jackie, right now, right?
Yeah. Who
is thinking about graduating high school, getting ready to go to college, who's mimicking the path you've already taken. So the fact that opportunities, the fact that you can share, you're a real life human being, went through that journey, went through that path, and can share the story that a lot of young people think, or they made us think. I remember being in junior high school, going to the guidance counselor. What do you want to be when you grow up? Right? That's what they asked us in 7th grade. What career? And they painted a picture, for me at least. I think I'm a little older than you. I think I'm a lot older than you.
Probably.
That you pick your career, you work it for 30 years, you retire, you move to Florida, and you live happily ever after.
Sure. Yeah, that's the story.
And it sure doesn't work like that anymore, right? People are left and right all the time, getting a degree in this and getting a career in that. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think maybe we're getting a little bit better at it. I know I'll give a quick shout out to the New York City iSchool is a public high school in Soho that I did my what was it called? My part of my graduate school work in to work with students in their college office with their college counselor Kate Beck, has been a great mentor to me, and they I think renamed and is in kind of in a part of a bigger pattern. I think in high schools across at least the country is like renaming college access offices like college and like future options offices, not just making it about college. This college might not be immediately, if not ever, the right path for everybody. And even just the broader question you bring up of like, it says a lot about, I think, our culture, the fact that even when you're in kindergarten, you know, your mom or dad or someone in your life is like, what do you want to be when you grow up, Kevin? And you're in kindergarten. Like, we don't know what we want to do. There are still days that, you know, many of us still might not know the answer to that question, and we're already in our careers. So it's, you know, especially now being in workforce development, it's made me be more curious about like the definition of work itself and like what role should work play in our lives, etc. Not just, you know, a tech itself, which I also have been exposed to more than I thought I would through my particular workforce development program.
Yeah. So what position should work play in our lives? What do we need to know? What does the young person need to know?
Yeah, that's what an important loaded question. I feel like there are things that professional Jackie of CUNY Tech Prep wants to say, and then other things perhaps that like more personal Jackie would want to say. I think the professional Jackie would focus on, you know, the realities of our society, you know, like to survive more or less, or not just survive, but like, you know, reach a certain amount of comfort. We pursue careers to make money and also, you know, find, if you're lucky, some, or, you know, for I think a lot of us, whatever we end up doing, some personal fulfillment and connection to others and community. Like I think work, the concept of work is like as getting things done and helping others and building community, building a society is inevitable, whatever it looks like. So like we're all gonna have to do that, go out there and do something to help our communities grow and thrive and survive. So like work is inevitable, and kind of the concept of a career that we have now, you know, for our lifetime, I think it's gotten a little bit more flexible, like you're alluding to. It's not like right now you have to go decide, you know, when you're the guidance counselor in 7th or 12th grade, what do you want to do, Jimmy? You don't have to say, like my dad, you don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to be an accountant, and then you're an accountant for 40 years. You can, which I think there's a lot of comfort in that. If, you know, if you find your path right away and can stay at a single company, I don't think that's a wrong thing to do now, but there is a lot more flexibility that, one, if you change your mind, then it's okay. Even if you go to college, I think a lot of CUNY students, you know, come to CTP or like meet us at an info session earlier in their kind of CUNY years, and they say, you know, like I don't know what I want to do. Like, how do I know if I pick the web development track at CTP or the data science track? And we really have to comfort them and insist, because it's true that like I think it's better, especially in your undergraduate years, to follow your curiosity and passion as much as your kind of unique path and circumstances allow you, knowing that you can probably change your mind moving forward. Even if you wind up getting into a company with your degree, say we've had students who like maybe majored in like some kind of more like computer engineering, which is maybe a little bit more like mechanical than like software engineering. You get into a company like Peloton and you're building bikes, I don't know. That same company is huge and has software engineers as well. Then you make friends at Peloton and you learn the skills you need. Maybe you go back to CUNY and you take a couple of classes, and in the same company, kind of like me, it's like I knew people at CTP, much smaller example, we're a small team, and because they knew me and I had already kind of known this specific knowledge of like, okay, this is CTP's world, I could apply it to move in a different direction at CTP. So I mean, it's such an important question. I think work, it's a necessity, but I also think in its best form, it also like meets human needs, and like that kind of, baseline looks the same for most of us. It's like, are you getting the money you need to put dinner on the table and have a roof over your head? And also can look like higher levels of personal fulfillment, especially if you pursue a degree where you get to be creative, you get to do something that really is interesting to you, which I think luckily a lot of our computer science students find that mix of both, because a lot of our students end up leaving the program with salaries higher than me, which is a huge humbling thing. And one of the reasons I stay is, a computer science degree can really, no debt from CUNY, lead you to change your life and your family's life, going right to a six-figure salary right away, as well as, finding some creative, meaning in your work.
Right. So you said you went to high school in Long Island?
Yeah, I'm from Rockville Center.
Okay.
I went to Southside High School, South Shore of Nassau, like 45 minutes from Penn Station.
Yes, Rockville Center. That's where the mall is. There's a mall over there, right? Big mall, famous mall.
We're pretty close to Green Acres. We're close to Valley Stream.
Okay.
And then there's also Roosevelt Field in Garden City. Mm-hmm.
And after high school, you went where?
I went to Holy Cross in Massachusetts.
Really?
Played soccer there. I never heard of it. Although my family is quite Catholic, so it was kind of ironic that we had never heard of Holy Cross. But I always went to public schools, so the idea of going to a private school was a different idea.
Yes.
But yeah, played soccer.
How big a school is it?
3,000. Small.
Yeah, because I'm familiar. I feel like there's some NCAA participation from Holy Cross.
Yeah, we're D1. We're D1. And honestly, like when I was there almost 10 years ago, we were pretty bad in like all sports. Women's hockey was like our top notch. The football team, though, in past years have been very successful. A couple of NFL draft picks from Holy Cross.
Okay. Yeah. So it's soccer?
I did. Wasn't the perfect match. I decided to quit after my second year and stayed for the academics. I had some really amazing professors and great experience as an English major, an environmental studies concentrator at Holy Cross, and a few close friends. But yeah, the soccer team wasn't the best fit. So it's pretty proud of myself. My life had been very centered on soccer most of my life. It's still like one of my biggest loves. Just like the team and coaching and a number of things just weren't a fit for me. So I very proud of that little Jackie of making that decision to leave, but kind of power through and take the good out of that school for me.
Well, being a student athlete comes with its own challenges.
100%. Yeah, most of my life that was my experience, but I liked it and was lucky because on Long Island we were a big soccer town. Had a successful high school soccer team, girls soccer team, and yeah, it was just kind of the norm. I was very lucky and supported as a student athlete.
You gotta have the win for it though. Soccer, you running miles.
Yeah, I also ran track. Had a really wonderful mentor. Chris Webster is an English teacher at Southside High School who's a really great guy and encouraged me to run track and field. In addition to playing soccer, I'd always put down track. I was like, that's, what is that? It's not a real sport. It was one of the hardest, most fulfilling things I've ever done. I now love to ran long distance and track, and he really helped increase my sense of confidence. Soccer is like a part of my identity in a way I can't, nothing else replaces, but it never kind of gave me that same level of individual confidence, like being an athlete that's just you and the track. Soccer team, you're on a team, you can always blame like, oh, she messed up. But track, it was just me. And it's a pretty special time.
Now let's talk about that moment. You're an athlete most of your life. You're in college, on the team, and now you have to consider leaving. You have to consider changing. What happened there? How was there a lot of conflict? Did that decision come with a lot of conflict for you?
Absolutely. It was one of the biggest turning points actually of my life. I will say that like most of kind of at that time, that it was like one of the hardest kind of experiences that I had, just experiencing what I kind of experienced is like a lot of like social isolation, and our coaches weren't always the most supportive, or at least in the kind of support that I need. Looking back, like, when we're so young, it's very hard for me to be like point fingers and someone did something wrong, but just the way that I experienced it, I didn't feel particularly supported. Hadn't planned on playing D1 necessarily, honestly. Had some other options in D3 schools, and had adults around me who, 18-year-old Jackie, I was such a child. And to have made even just one D1 spot, even the smallest scholarship, for a lot of adults in my life, that was a clear, of course you have to go with that. Even though I kind of knew from the beginning that it wasn't the best fit. From when you're a college athlete, you often get the chance to go on an overnight visit. You go meet the team, you meet the coaches, you see a game, maybe you spend the night. And again, I don't want to point fingers, like, we're all different people, but I kind of knew off the bat that I didn't really mesh well with the girls, and I had nothing against the coaches, but I had been lucky to have these strong long-term relationships in my hometown. Again, I played on the same club team from 4th grade to 12th grade, and like develop relationships and trust with fellow players that I just didn't have at Holy Cross, that no one has really in college if you're the average, because you don't know your peers yet. So kind of that as context, it became a kind of easy decision my sophomore year, when like I didn't have the language per se for it, but I knew that my mental health was really taking a hit for spending most of my time on this team. When you're a college athlete, to be an student athlete in general takes up a lot of time management, but to be a college athlete, especially D1, is just that much more of your time going to your sport. So you better love at least one part of it. You better love your team and or your coaches, and or at least you better be winning. But unfortunately that year, the 2 years I was on the team, none of those boxes were checked for me. My confidence really took a hit. And I knew I wasn't playing my best, and just not feeling supported in a number of different ways in order to grow, to be able to do that. So yeah, I went to this really, I feel like one of your listeners can maybe resonate with this as something that really helped me. Holy Cross had this, at the time I read it, I was like, this sounds cheesy, but it changed my life. And this thing called the weekend workshop for reflection, for journaling and reflection, something like that. And I was like, I don't know anyone except the soccer team and like my one friend here, but like I'll give it a shot. They were like really the first people that I like gained any kind of, I think, emotional closeness with, and really was able to talk for the first time, other than like with the one friend I had for a while in beginning of college, about how the team presented so many challenges for me. And they were so supportive and so affirmative that like, of course you should leave. That's okay. It just says nothing bad about you, and look at all you can gain from it. And yeah, it put me on a path to writing again, which, I grew up writing short stories and poems and things like that. And in high school, I was like, that doesn't feel very cool. Like, I want to stop doing that. But like after that weekend workshop, I was encouraged to start writing again, which really helped me get through the rest of college. And it's a practice that I still hold on to now. And to leave, but also to stay. because I could have transferred, but I continued to stay at Holy Cross and kind of lean on these new communities that I learned were there the whole time.
That is so powerful. I can imagine how emotional it was for you. So I'm not trying to dig up any old emotions.
No, please. It's a story that I've gone to years of therapy to so it's really okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's okay. But what I'm really trying to get at is like I spoke and I've interviewed student athletes before who are, they, had an injury, had to change the sport. Yeah. I spoke to a baseball player all his life. He got an injury in college, felt like he disappointed his family. Now he's the executive director of programs and So he's
wow. Yeah.
What I'm trying to glean is that moment. There's a moment, particularly for the student athletes, where you have to change your trajectory and it feels like the end of the world.
Without a doubt, Kevin.
What does that athlete going through that moment, what do they need to know? What can you share with them that result of your journey through that?
Yeah, that hit my heart a little bit. Makes me emotional because I think if you're not someone who grew up playing sports so seriously, it's hard maybe to relate. But for any student athletes listening, it's like, we know that this is such a big part of our identities. We spent hours, hopefully, not just playing, but loving the sport and, literally putting blood, sweat, and tears into making this dream of playing in college happen. Like for so long, that was the goal, that was the dream, and then we achieved it. And the reality is that for most of us, we're not going to play as professionals. So even if you have a fantastic college sport experience, that question is inevitable. Your athletic identity is going to at least shift to one that is more recreational and for your own fun and enjoyment for the first time for many of us. So I'd say in terms of advice, it's like, first, to really validate any feelings that come up, because they really are valid. How difficult it can be to shift out or into a new relationship with your sport and being an athlete. And two, that you're still an athlete. The confidence and sense of, especially pride in being a female athlete, someone that grew up being like, I can beat that boy in a race and beat that boy at a tennis match. Like it's ingrained in me that that self-confidence, and part of what I love about myself is that I'm athletic. And that doesn't go away. In some ways, ironically, I think ending my own formal soccer career early gave me some tools and space to reflect more meaningfully about it sooner, to reach maybe some of these ideas sooner of, what does this mean that I'm leaving? What am I giving up, but also what am I gaining? Having that more challenging experience in college soccer helped me more easily see what am I gaining. Luckily now, you'll always, to the student athletes out there, if it's an injury that ended your journey, that's, knock on wood, not something I can relate to. In total, I have had more ankle injuries than I could literally count, but it never ended my career. It always was more of a bump. So definitely, take care of yourself physically and whatever that means to you. And if you're ever able to, you can always go out and play, and make it about play again. Now I go on runs, people are like, Jackie, why don't you run a marathon? Why don't you do this race? And why don't you train for this? And I'm like, maybe one day, but for now, I'm just going to enjoy the privilege of being able to run for fun and play in my recreational co-ed soccer team for fun, which is what brought us to sports to begin with for a lot of us. It's just because they're fun. So that's thankfully not going to go away for most of us. Even if you get hurt, you can watch. It's not the same at all, but you can adjust. It's always going to be there for you.
You can adjust. Absolutely, you can adjust.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate the insight from someone that's experienced that.
Yeah.
So this might come out as redundant. I don't know.
That's okay.
Ask you a question from the perspective of the student athlete.
Yes.
So it might be redundant. You might repeat the same thing, but I'm gonna ask you two things. One is, what's the best advice you've ever received? And then what's the best advice you have to offer?
Specifically as a student athlete?
No.
Or just in general? Oh, I see.
We got you.
Yeah, what a good question. I think the best advice I've ever received is to kind of honor your own self-knowledge into, it's kind of more than just maybe following your gut or I'm trying to think of, there's a number of different people that I think I've directly and indirectly learned this from, whether it's been a coach or a therapist, or recently I've been getting back into yoga. I've just been learning and have learned from these teachers that we all have, an amount of, nobody knows you better than yourself. And there are going to be people out all of our lives that people are going to throw things at you. Oh, you are this, you're that, and whatnot. And, you can take those things as what they are. Sometimes it's going to be really helpful. Sometimes they might not be. But yeah, just kind of like knowing that this kind of moment is all that we have, and that the knowledge of self and our own experiences is something you can trust in. And then I'll add that, like, even from the perspective of like doctors and like going to doctors and kind of relying on them to be like, this is something that you're struggling with. But then recently I learned about like kind of through my own like self-work and research of like the answer to like a health challenge that I've been facing for years. And that came through years of just kind of learning from these others who encouraged in me to reflect and to trust myself and, sometimes seek out those answers for yourself. And then advice for others, I'd say, especially college students, is that your emotions are valid. I have a brother who's 10 years younger than me, and he's a junior in college currently. And especially for the young men out there, it's like, I'm socialized as a woman, identify as one, and I'm at least encouraged to feel emotions. And I think we're moving into a societal moment where it's more okay for all people, despite gender and different backgrounds, to talk about your feelings. But like, it's just so important to know that your emotions are valid and to feel them and find healthy ways to talk about them and cope with them and express them. So that's one thing. Even for my students at CUNY Tech Prep, we're not working in a hospital, we're not doing heart surgery, but we're still helping people find jobs, which can be a very emotional process. And emotions that come up, whatever it is, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others, like it's valid. Let yourself feel it.
And I appreciate your time, Jackie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question. I never asked this question. Did you expect to talk about this stuff before the interview started?
Not necessarily, but I feel like I've always, or I've ironically, actually, because of my experience in college, became a little bit more open. I'm an introverted person by nature. Didn't know a word for that until like graduate school. Ironically, I get my energy by being alone, but wasn't always so outwardly spoken. Was that kid that was like, Jackie is quiet or Jackie is shy. And I think through through knowing what it's like to be particularly feeling alone in college, I've just grown to feel more empowered to speak and to let others know they're not alone. So, I'm pretty open with my story and didn't know what would come up, but was happy to share it. Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate it. I have the luxury of, you may not know, but I have the luxury of being a stand-up comedian.
Oh, I could see that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. And
Yeah.
I was a square. I remember when I made the decision to be a stand-up comic, and I was humorous, and I was always welcoming and warm, but I wasn't funny. I was never the funniest guy in the building, the funniest guy in the room, conversation. But the stage becomes therapy.
I'm sure.
You become a great comedian after you experience real life trauma, right? Real life hardship. That's
100%.
elevate comedians to their highest points. And that being said, so typically those traumas, people take them and they hold them, they protect them, they don't want to share them. But when you get on stage and you share it, and then you make a joke about it, and then half the audience laughs because they've experienced it, it's the great
about it
world, right?
Yeah,
great.
I'm sure.
But also, we've started these podcasts. I'm probably in the 70s range. I've probably done about 70 episodes. Definitely, wow. We're close to 5 seasons in a TV series.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't going well, we would have stopped it. Stopped at 1. We would have stopped at 5. We would have stopped at 10. We're at 7.
Yeah.
But your story can help someone. Your story will help someone. We love that we can document the journeys of people, because you are a success story. You're a person that when a student is going through a conflict, particularly a student athlete, and they feel like it's the end of the world, one of the greatest lessons that you represent is it's the beginning of a new world, right? It might be the end of that world, but it's the beginning of a new world. It's not where you start, it's how you end up. So your story is a success story. We definitely appreciate you joining us. Definitely appreciate you sharing.
It's very kind of you.
And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Kevin.